6:02 now. We do want to get some breaking news this morning. We're following out of Larimer County where deputies shot a woman they say they were trying to pick up on an outstanding warrant. This started around 1:30 this morning at Highway 402 and East Frontage Road. Larimer County deputies found a car whose owner had a warrant and a revoked license. The deputy tried to pull her over, but she took off, leading deputies on a chase at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour. Spike strips did not slow her down, and she eventually stopped at Wheat Ridge Court and County Road 18. Deputies say that she got out of the car with a gun, and that's when deputies fired. It's not clear whether she pointed her gun at those deputies or fired herself, and she was hit, taken to the hospital. No one else was hurt. Loveland Police will take the lead on this investigation.
Today, a man charged in connection with someone's death on New Year's Day is set to be arraigned. 19-year-old Angel Lozano is accused of shooting another man near 78th and Dahlia in Commerce City. Police said Lozano may have been having a mental health crisis, adding he and the victim knew each other. He turned himself in several hours after police posted his picture on social media. That hearing is set for 8:30 this morning.
An update this morning, prosecutors could add more charges against Miles Harford. He is the former funeral director for Littleton, accused of leaving a woman's body in a hearse for a year and a half. While Harford was back in court on Monday, prosecutors got a continuance, which gives them more time to consider those additional charges. Harford is also accused of giving the family of the woman found in the hearse someone else's remains. Police arrested the 33-year-old earlier this year after they say his business closed in September of 2022. Harford had owned Apollo Funeral and Cremation Services in Littleton. His arraignment has been rescheduled for October.
New this morning, President Biden is taking some time with his family after a rousing first night of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. New video shows him stepping off Air Force One in California just a few hours ago.
Thank you, Kamala.
And just hours before that, the president officially passed the torch to his vice president in her bid to win the presidency come November. The president's choice to step aside for Democrats to pull off a mid-campaign switch is American history in the making, and it's why 9 News has a team at the DNC this year to talk to the Coloradans involved. Today is day 2.
We expect to hear from former President Barack Obama as well as second gentleman Doug Emhoff tonight. But this morning, we're taking a look back at President Biden's appearance. 9 News anchor Kyle Clark is in Chicago with what Colorado delegates who are optimistic about the future.
A bittersweet night for Joe Biden, an unprecedented moment in American politics. A sitting president cheered by his own party for dropping his re-election campaign. An end to his political career, not as he wanted, but as how some powerful people in this room wanted it to end for what they said was the sake of the party. Tonight, Joe Biden was met with a 4-minute standing ovation. Biden was emotional at the overwhelming welcome. He defiantly then leaned into a detailed defense of his administration's record on job creation, rebuilding infrastructure, confronting polluters, and defending Ukraine against Russian aggression. He told the crowd, democracy must be preserved, pointing to Donald Trump's refusal to accept election results when he loses.
Donald Trump says he will refuse to accept the election result if he loses again. We saved democracy in 2020. And now we must save it again in 2024.
Democrats in the arena tonight leapt to their feet when, in closing, Biden said, "America, I gave you my best." Colorado's Democratic delegates this summer very quickly swung their support to Kamala Harris after Joe Biden's exit. In fact, objections to the Biden to Harris switch in Colorado have largely come from conservatives, not from Democrats. We talked to delegates from Colorado's delegation tonight about their comfort level with this mid-campaign switch. Khadijah Haynes from Denver backed Biden's decision, but she wondered to us about what that says about how Americans view aging. And I asked the chair of the Colorado Democratic Party why he believes Colorado Democrats rallied behind Harris so quickly.
People who are old are smart, they're wise, they have a lot to teach us. I have a few gray hairs myself, so I say that in a self-serving way. So it must have been really hard for him to recognize that the rest of the world doesn't see that and to take himself out of that.
So it's a delegation full of folks who really respect President Biden. When he decided to step down and endorse Kamala Harris, they took that seriously. And so they took direction from President Biden on his choice. They weighed on it, they thought about it, and she proved that she's the right candidate to lead us into the future. So it's a very thoughtful decision from President Biden, thoughtful decision from our delegates.
Khadijah Haynes, the delegate from Denver that you heard from there, says she doesn't think that Kamala Harris can win on vibes alone. She wants her to lean into outlining policy positions and taking more tough questions from the media. But Haynes said the vibes are pretty good right now. What a few months ago for Colorado Democrats was dread has now turned to cautious optimism. In Chicago, Kyle Clark, 9 News.
Meanwhile, outside the DNC, police detained several people after protesters broke through a security fence. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets. Chicago's police chief says some protesters threw water bottles at officers, who the chief says were able to de-escalate the situation without using force. 9 News will continue bringing you live coverage of this year's DNC throughout the week. You can also watch next 5-part series on Donald Trump's policies that aired during the RNC back in July on 9news.com.
As the DNC got underway, former President Trump and running mate Senator J.D. Vance kicked off a tour across swing states countering the DNC. Both made appearances in Pennsylvania. Vance spoke at a rally in Philadelphia, criticizing Vice President Harris for continuing to refuse interviews with the press weeks into her candidacy. Vance also questioned Governor Tim Walz's military record. Meanwhile, Trump participated in a roundtable discussion at a factory in York, Pennsylvania, to talk about the economy, where he took aim at Harris's plan.
If Kamala gets in, the United States will rapidly become a deindustrialized third world nation, like so many others have become. She's running on socialist price controls, banning gas-powered cars and trucks, and private health insurance policies are gone.
The campaign has several more stops in swing states this week, including Arizona, North Carolina, Michigan, and Nevada.
A federal judge has shut down Hunter Biden's attempt to dismiss his tax evasion case. The president's son had attempted to use the same controversial ruling that ended Donald Trump's classified documents case. Hunter Biden initially argued that the counsel who brought the charges was unconstitutionally appointed and unlawfully funded. However, a district judge ruled his decision was based entirely on technical and procedural grounds. He also concluded that Hunter Biden's motion was filed too late. Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty to 9 tax crimes. The next hearing in this case is scheduled for tomorrow.
Former New York Congressman George Santos has pleaded guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. He was charged with 23 felonies for a variety of crimes, including using campaign funds to pay for personal expenses and lying to Congress about his wealth. Santos will have to repay at least $373,000 and could face more than 2 years in jail. His sentencing is set for February 7th.
And one thing to know about the weather for today, hot, really hot for us. 95 for us here in Denver, a lot of upper 90s for us in the eastern plains. It does cool down a little bit later on this week, though. Details on that coming up in just a couple minutes.